My family is very special to me, but looking back on my life at 21, I can't even begin to count the amount of times I took my family for granted. I never thought the time would come that I wouldn't see them all the time, that I would be on the way to making my own family. It was only after sitting down with my grandparents, my parents, and my siblings that I really began to understand how lucky I was and am for having had the childhood that I did, for having been blessed with the family that I have. When you have this experience where you take a step back and examine those closest to you from kind of an outsider's perspective, you come to understand them as incredible human beings, rather than just your mother, just your grandfather, just your family. They morph into strangers and you fall in love with them all over again.
On my mother's side, her father was a merchant seaman, as well as two of his brothers were. And somewhere during the Depression in the 1930s, the ship, on its regular routine travels, was in America. The two brothers, my grandfather's two brothers, decided that America was a pretty neat place, and they decided to stay. My grandfather came back.
I remember going hunting with my grandfather on my mother's side. I didn't have too much to do with the other one. It wasn't my fault on the other side, on the Lynch side. He was not the kind that associated a whole lot with his in-laws, you know. He was a nice person, but he just didn't do that. And he was a teamster, that one. D. Lynch was his name. And he drove a wagon, and if he was a farmer too. And the other one, on my mother's side, Dolph Childers, was the blacksmith. And I hunted with him quite a bit, and I also helped him in the blacksmith shop. He taught me a lot of things about blacksmithing.
My grandfather collected coins, old coins. He had a big bell jar. It was probably 2 foot tall and 18 inches wide. When we would go, he would empty out the coins on the table, and we would sort them, sort out the dimes, pennies, quarters, and nickels, and then we'd count them. And then we'd put them back in the jar. And it was kind of cool. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the value of it. It was just about doing that with him.
My grandparents were old. We spent every single weekend in West Virginia when I was a kid, and all summer mostly. That they would always, even though they usually went to bed at 6 o'clock, they would wait up for us every time we came because we couldn't leave Ohio until Granddad got home from work. My granddad, you know, was a Native American, and he never said hardly anything. He was really, really quiet. He just kind of stood there. But every time that I would come, we had a favorite rocking chair. It was like this, but it was like a softy chair with leather, and it rocked. And the handles were wooden, carved wooden, but there was a hole in them big enough for me to stick my feet in. So he would sit in the chair, and then I would sit next to him sideways with my feet sticking out, and then we would rock. And that's what we did. And I sat with him for hours every time I was down there. He was my favorite.
When I was born, early in 1943, the Germans decided they needed a workforce in Germany, in the munitions plant, in their rocket assembly area. My father and all of his brothers-in-law were shipped off to Germany, and my father wound up in a place called Peenemünde, where they were building and setting off rockets to bomb London. He stayed there until sometime, probably mid the summer of 44, after the Allied troops landed in Normandy. From what I can piece together is that the security at these labor camps became very lax. So the laborers just started walking out, which he did. And the story were that he walked all the way from Peenemünde back to Rotterdam. I don't know how long it took him, but it must have been quite a celebration that he came back, because my sister was born sometime in 1945.
When my mother was a child and they lived in a rented apartment that had back porches on it. They were on a third floor apartment, and my mother's brothers and sisters were running around playing down below. She wasn't supposed to go down there, and so she was leaning over the railing at, hey, you kids, and waving and everything. And she leaned too far over, and she went flying down, splatted right on the ground down below, and she broke the bones in her elbow and arm. Did you ever see that Grandma's arm didn't straighten out?
It's kind of hard to put in words. My mother was the carpenter in the family. If anything needed done around the house, my mother did all that. And she even went hunting a couple times. But anyway, Dad was. It's hard to put in words what your family was.
Every year, my father would take 3 or 4 weeks off for the whole summer, and we would go to places. Looking back at that, I can't imagine now taking 4 weeks vacation in a row. He made a big, huge sacrifice in his career and his upward mobility it was more important to spend time with us as a family, to go on vacation, than it was to climb the corporate ladder or get the next promotion. He didn't care. And that was kind of cool. I didn't appreciate it then, I appreciate it now.
I just remember Granddad, when I was younger, he worked all the time. They both worked all the time. But he worked like an hour away, so he would get up before I got up to go to school. He would already be gone. And then he would come back at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then dinner. And then that was dinner. When he got home, you had to be there. Couldn't be out running around because that was dinner time. And then we would eat dinner, and he would go into the living room and turn on MASH. And so that's me and Granddad's thing. That's what we did. So every night, he would come in, and I'd sit right next to him, and we'd watch MASH. We watched it from the very first episode till it was over. And that was our thing.
We came to this country halfway through the 4th grade. I remember the voyage, of course. I was 9 years old. And I remember we started off in Rotterdam. We sailed up the river to the North Sea and landed in Hoboken. I remember passing the Statue of Liberty. Everybody rushed to the side of the ship, and people were starting to worry if the ship was going to capsize right there in front of the Statue of Liberty, because everybody was jumping out looking at it.
My mother and father and my sister and I lived in Oberlin. We were there for a year, and I remember the house. The house was so much fun for a little person. The thing that was the most interesting was in the kitchen there was a door that you opened, a cupboard door, and when you opened it up, it had a big hole that led down to the basement right by the washing machine. So we loved that, and I almost went down at one time. I was going to see down there how far it was. My mother caught me, So that was kind of fun.
My grandmother, Childers, my mother's mother, she had a friend of hers was sitting on their porch, and I don't know how it happened, but anyway, we had a goofball in town. He was a kid. He was ornery as a snake and arrogant and all this. Anyway, I was riding a bike, and he shoved me over. I walked past him, he just shoved me over, and he was eating cornbread. Had cornbread in his mouth. And it made me so mad, I took after him and caught him. I smacked him right in the jaw as hard as I could hit him, and the cornbread flew out of his mouth. And my grandmother and her friend were sitting on the porch watching. And my friend said to my grandmother, said, "My God, Lucy's knocked all of his teeth out." And
Other than Alaska and Hawaii, I think we drove through every state in the country. There was these little gas stations, Stuckies, I think they're called, blue with a yellow roof. When we stopped at them, when we passed through states, and they would have little magnets that you'd put in the fridge that were shaped like the states. So we try to get a magnet of each state that we went through. I don't know if we hit every state. I don't know if we got every magnet. I know we got a lot of them. And I know we went through a lot of different states.
I always knew you as this weird girl that always told me what to do, because that's the kind of person you are. You like telling people what to do. Doug doesn't want kids. I might have kids. I just don't think I'm motherhood material. What about you? You think you'd be a good mom?
Well, this isn't about me. What do you think?
Yeah.
Why? Because I like telling people what to do.
No. Because you take most out for mom.
I remember Sydney, there was a period of time over the summer we worked together at Tony Carino's. There was like a brotherhood between us, you see. So we were working together in the trenches. She would deliver food to people and spill it all over them, and then I would have to clean it up.
There are so many more stories that weren't told in this film, but to tell every single one of them might take years. In the end, we are each a piece to this great puzzle that will constantly grow in size as more members are added and more memories are made. As of spring 2017, this is the Van Leeuwen-Lynch family history in sum. I am Sydney Van Leeuwen, granddaughter of an immigrant and daughter of truly remarkable people. I wouldn't trade it for the world.